And you're tuned in to In My Humble Opinion on 101 Jams, the people station for hip-hop and R&B, Charlottesville's home of In My Humble Opinion, with Charles Lewis and Maxilia Robinson. And, we hanging out, we chatting, you know what I'm saying? We got the brews, floating, we got the barbecue going, apparently because we just, family in here today, chatting, talking. And, there's a lot going on in the news, and there's a lot of things that needs to be addressed. Some more serious than others. And some things just kind of downright humorous if you think about it. And if we can just remember to smile, no matter how tough it is. So to chat with us and to convo with us and break things down, as well as the feedback that you all send us at IMHO 101 Jams. We have Mr. Aaron Simmons.
Yo.
And we have. Is it Mr. Razor, Sir Razor?
No. Just
Lord Razor. I like Lord Razor.
Yeah. Big R, little A-Z-O-R.
All right. So yeah, man. So there's just so much going on. Like I wanted to kick it off by talking about our president, President Barack Obama. With all due respect, some people call him by his first name. I never heard of a president prior. Have y'all heard of a president prior where people refer to him by his first name?
Mm-mm.
So we talking about a level of respect for the man in his office, President Obama. And now, with there's a lot talking about what how he handles situations. And so I wanted to bring up one particular news headline because he attended the funeral services of the police officers who were killed in Dallas. And so that's one, because to my knowledge, he's not and hasn't attended the funeral services for, say, like Brother Alton, Brother Philando. And so as president, should he? Is it because they are officers of the law that that he represents is why he went? Would he be looked at as too much of a black president if he stands up a little more for black people's justice?
I'll let I'll go ahead and give my answer now. Let the guys chime in. I think that he will get flack no matter which way he goes.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that he should attend the funerals of the civilians? Maybe so. I mean, maybe so. I've never really looked at it that way, quite honestly. But I can understand where he would. But I think, despite no matter which funeral he goes to, they're going to find some fault on him on one side or the other. How about you guys?
True that. I mean, he's definitely in the middle, of something, because he's the first, president that identifies as African American. But he has that fine line because he represents all people. And the argument is that he can't appear to be too black, is what I hear some of the argument is. But he has to appear more so presidential. And Aaron, before you chime in, like my rebuttal to that is, okay, so if he can give energy and show compassion for victims in Orlando and attacks on homosexuals, if he can show sensitivity to women's rights, just because he's black, I mean. Like he's a man, so does that mean he doesn't stand up? He can't stand up for men, So I don't buy that he's black, so he only could do so much.
I just simply agree with Maxilia. I believe that her assessment of the situation was 100% accurate. I just would like to go back to when Mr. Obama was originally elected. I've seen no evidence that people refer to him anything else other than being a black president, based upon all the names he's called, how he's been treated by his fellow Congress, just the total acts of disrespect. I myself didn't expect him to go out to any of these, victims. I just didn't expect it because he hasn't done that before. I mean, how many have we had? I mean, the unfortunate part is I sit here, we and Razor were talking, and, I think every black person can attribute to this. When we start talking about these police shootings, what we have to say? Which one are you talking about?
Right. Yeah,
and the fact that I can't remember, well, he didn't attend this one, he's not going to attend any, and we need to probably understand that that's not going to happen. And I don't think that there's a reason for or against. I just think it really just shows you how much of a victim he is in this system as everybody else is. Truthfully, he can't do anything right or do anything wrong. He goes there. I mean, we're looking at this article now. It says he's got thousands of comments of people just laying this man out, and he's going there to support the city of Dallas. I mean, he's not going there to downgrade the city of Dallas. He's going there to support them and support law enforcement down there. So I just don't see how anything this man at this point can do is going to be viewed as anything else than he's just being a troublemaker and he's just out here just riling up racial tendencies. Well, he riles up racial tendencies the moment he walks in a room, simply by him just having melanin in his skin.
All right, so but check it out. But let me interject though, because what I hear you saying though is what he's done and what he's expected to do. But the question I'm posing though is that take it as you as an African American man and your president identifying as African American man. What I'm asking is do you feel like that he should be doing more? And like, should he be representing the black man's plight more when it's needed?
I can tell you that I don't necessarily expect that from my president. I expect that from all people that classify themselves as black, to have a certain level of black self-respect. I think the issue just continues to be is that a lot of people are just simply confused about racism, and I would probably tell you I think President Obama is probably one of them, because maybe he thought that, remember his whole message, everybody help me, it was based on hope and pride and things are going to get better, and he has gotten in there, and I mean anything that you can possibly think of. If we just had a wall and let's say, hey y'all, let's think about some problems that President Obama could have in 8 years, some of this stuff, who could imagine that this stuff would have happened to him? I don't think anybody would have imagined it. So I just think that he and his family have shown a tremendous amount of black self-respect being in that office. Every time I see Miss Obama, I clap. She is nothing but pride. And I always say, we as black people, look at that brother's hair when he got in and look at his hair now. True that. He had a fresh little shape up, and now that sucker is great. And that is not from a lack of trying.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure.
He's
you got anything to add, Razor?
I mean, like, for me, he's a politician. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to things like it, like you're asking him to choose, okay, do I want to go support my own people and take up this fight? Or do I want to go down to the police and make it look good for America? You know what I'm saying? He's a politician first. It's almost like when we were talking the other day, and all right, and let me just go ahead and say this like this. All right, why everybody look at me? Look, all right,
because
I had a question for an officer, and this would go for the politicians too. When you have situations like this, do you identify first with being a black man, or do you identify first with being an officer? With President Obama, are you a black man or are you a politician? You know what I'm saying? So when you have those things, you have to choose. You're choosing sides, so you know you're going to ruffle some feathers. You know what I'm saying? So if he goes, and to my understanding, none of those victims were any of those victims African American for the police in Dallas.
No, not
all right. So then you have which. African American people gonna look at it, the negative one, saying he has his, black face, ran all the way down there to Dallas to support that, and you done went past, you didn't go to Louisiana, you didn't go to Missouri, you didn't do, you know what I'm saying, you didn't do certain things. So it's a lose-lose situation for him.
Yeah, and to me, it's no better time than the present, though, because when is right gonna stop yielding to wrong, though?
It's not.
You know what I mean? So I understand what you're saying about him being a politician and things like that. But again, if you can stand up for any special interest group, and when I say special interest, I just mean like a particular issue, whether it's race, it's sex, religion, whatever. So in saying that, like to me, it shouldn't matter that he's a politician. If you're going to stand up for one, stand up for the other. And to me,
that's not a politician. That's not a politician.
Right, but check it out though. Like some would say that it's it's political suicide to stand up for homosexual rights. Some would say that. So my point is that I'm just saying, I'm speaking personal now. To me, it does diminish his his African pride, so to speak, a little bit, like to be so afraid to speak out when you speak out on other issues. Now, if he remained neutral on all issues, then I would be with
That's
him.
not a politician. Like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you're kind of like you're cutting yourself off at the same time because, well, one, going to supporting homosexuality. You know that's strong right now. People of, I mean, I'm not against anybody. Let me say that first. But people of, the gay lesbian community, they have their own TV shows. They have their own way of doing things. I mean, it's not anything abnormal to see a young lady that looks like a man or a man who's dressing like a woman. So that's not, at this day and age, it's not political suicide. But for him, he's a politician. So, what is he going to do? He's going to do what best fits the interests of the whole. And he's going to get more praises, more attaboys for going to Dallas than he is for going to Missouri or going to Louisiana, especially since, like, the one in Louisiana, my man had prior charges for things he had done in his life, and he had a pistol in his pocket.
Good point.
So you want the only African American president we've ever had to sit down there inside the church, not you, Joe, but like us people want us to sit down there. Yeah, Charles, you want him, you know what I'm saying? You can't ask him to do that. You can't ask him to support certain things. Think about it. We don't support certain members of our family when they ain't done something stupid. So you want him to base the end of his legacy on going down there and sitting in there. No. Now, if he did Missouri, then he has to do Louisiana. So it's like a lose-lose situation for him. Go ahead, Aaron. Back me up.
Now, and one thing I'm going to erase or hit it on the head with, I want to remind everybody about the backlash that Mr. Obama received when I say, and I quote, Trayvon Martin, if I had a son, Trayvon Martin could have looked like my son if I had one. He received so much backlash on that. People say, "Oh, you're race baiting and you're doing this." So he has spoken out. But one thing I'm gonna go back to you, Charles, and I'm gonna say, and this thing, and you mentioned it about him being the black president. I think when people say, "What is black?" because you kind of mentioned something about levels of blackness, I would even question that. But let me ask you a question: if he was anything other than himself, he was very comfortable with white America. He was very comfortable. If he was just a step higher in what you're saying on the black scale, I would continue he wouldn't even got elected.
Great point.
If he said anything sounding like Malcolm X, what have he been branded at? He's militant. This Negro's not going to be in the office. He is not going to get elected.
If he looked like James Evans for Good Times.
I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, we have to be truthful about this. So when we start talking about, he's the black, listen, he got in, however he got in, bravo to him, and we applaud him and we support him because he's shown a high level of black self-respect. But anything he goes past now, I'm just happy, honestly, that the brother made it through without any attempts on his life that I have seen.
Right, yeah.
And
I appreciate that convo. But before we switch it up, I totally understand the political process and what it takes. And now I will say that me as a black man, those are things that in my spirit and my soul I would like to see. Because even though that brother had previous charges, like you mentioned, Razor, and he had a gun on him, but did they ever say whether or not the gun was illegal though? I'm not sure about that part.
Don't know whether or not I heard
the
that.
type of charges that he had prior.
He
probably would have made him a felon.
He couldn't possess a gun. So yeah.
Then he had it in his pocket.
Right.
You've been in the street.
Yeah.
If you legal, you got a holster.
Yeah.
If you ain't legal, don't push me, Max.
You got
I got something
belt.
to tell you.
He had his belt. All right, but look. All right, so check it out though. So the man that I am, makes me say, okay, but we're still talking about someone who was not a threat. Still died, unjustifiably. Like so the man in me says the president should stand for the right. I understand politics, and I know that he walks a very fine line, just as Aaron said, and I firmly realize that because I guess my median there is that I say, man, this is your last year. Go out with a blast, dude. Like let it all hang out. You know what I'm saying? Like part of in the middle, I would say that, but then on the political side, I get it. And for another black president to be elected, he does have to end with the utmost respect.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what he's against. And it's like Aaron was saying, you know, like the way he looked, the way he sounded, you know, like the culture he comes from, it was acceptable. You know, he was sort of the acceptable Negro, so to speak. You know, very articulate. And so I get it, like that we're in that phase, and then maybe the next one would be a little more brother. You feel me? You know, I mean, you got to kind of gradually do this thing. You feel me?
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, though, is that he can't run around going to everybody's funeral, you know, because we need him in the White House doing something like, I don't know, stopping terrorists.
Right,
Yeah.
So kind of feeding off of that, piggybacking off of that. The Minnesota Lynx basketball team. So they wore shirts that I personally feel were pretty neutral, and I want to get y'all opinion on this. And so the official article, actually written by Kirsten Willis, said that 4 off-duty police officers on post at the July 9th Minnesota Lynx WNBA basketball game quit their positions after seeing the players' T-shirts, which demanded justice and accountability. The message was made in the wake of the police shooting deaths of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile last week. The deaths reportedly led to the Dallas shooting, right? But on these shirts, it said justice and accountability. And it also gave reference as far as memorializing the Dallas officers as well. So it wasn't like that this was even a shirt that, and this was a warm-up shirt that the women's, basketball team was wearing. It wasn't even a shirt that was, to me, it wasn't even offensive. Because it didn't really single like a race out or a certain group out. It said justice and accountability. So
Let me see that.
So how do y'all feel about security?
Look, Aaron trying to take the mic before you can even phrase your question.
So security.
The comments made by the guesses
for a public event, they came out for their post for that shirt, again, like I said, and it was a well-rounded, to me, very general statement. And then they were backed by their police department as that it's offensive. So to me, this just leads into a whole atmosphere of how, too many of us aren't backing down from either side, and we're not even being reasonable.
Right.
Razor, what color is that shirt?
It's got a little ebony in it.
Point taken, right there. I'm saying it just like it is. The shirt, I believe the article references something as Black Lives Matter. I tell people you need to stop listening to the radio a lot. Not this radio, but you need to stop listening to music a lot. But you need to listen. You need to listen and read things that are constructive. But I've heard a lot of stuff on Fox News trying to label Black Lives Matter as being a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
And that could be the furthest. There is no evidence, and I need people to email Max, email Charles, and bring up articles. Can somebody show me how these people are going out here inciting and terrorizing people? I do not see any evidence of that at all. I think those sisters and the sisters that I see, it's 4, looks like black females wearing those T-shirts, one white females wearing those T-shirts as well. They're exercising their constitutional right to make a statement. Right. And for those gentlemen to be off-duty police officers, what if, I'm just throw it out there, we quit our job, we hate this, somebody gets hurt.
Mm-hmm. Well, that goes back to a discussion that we had. Whenever we stand for something, then it's always seemed as an uprising or belligerent or aggressive, or, it's always problematic when we stand and say, no more, this is what we're in support of. Then you got a problem.
It goes back to what I said the other day. When a lot of these things were written, they were not written with us in mind. So when we stand up when we say stop doing something to me, it's immediately looked at like we don't have the right to say so. This is the reason why unity has to come full circle. You have to support one another in your views. Now, it's already happened on the other side. They support each other 100%. And I'm not talking about white people. I'm not just talking about police. I'm just talking about in views that do not help your fellow man. At this junction, it happens to be us talking about African Americans versus police. Everything that you see on the news happens to be, looks like black and white. So it's a tough thing. I'm going to say something, and this is my comments and not everybody else's comments here.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer. I kind of get upset sometimes when I see things like the Black Lives Matter or Trayvon Martin with the hoods, because so many people turn it into gimmicks. It's the thing to do right now. So then not realizing that you're discrediting the movement itself. Right. So when I look at some people and I look at you and you say Black Lives Matter, and I know you've done nothing to advance anything about that movement except for purchase that T-shirt because everybody has it on. Right. I look at you funny. I mean, I'm definitely not against Black Lives. I'm blackest one up in here. But I'm just saying, Mac.
You talking about
the melody.
You're not talking about soul.
Yeah.
Because I got soul. Jimmy got soul.
Yeah, but all jokes aside, like when you have something as important as this, do your research, do your due diligence, learn what you're supporting before you just do something because everybody else does it. And that's a huge problem that we have out of our teenagers right now. You know, when Trayvon Martin died, everybody was walking around with hoods. Why? Because he got shot down there, and all he had was some candy. Okay, do you understand the law? No.
And you're going to find yourself in a position you don't want to be in anytime someone calls you out on what it is that you are supposedly supporting.
Yeah, and it discredits everything.
Yeah. So, if y'all don't mind, if that's it for that one, to sort of transition, because we had talked about the basketball and the ownership of our blackness, so to speak. I'm gonna lighten it up a little bit. Steph Curry, I don't know if y'all seen this yet, but he's having a basketball camp this summer in California, and so it costs $2,500 for the camp, right? And so he was pressed by some of his former fellow athletes and others, and about why would it cost so high? Why wouldn't you make it more affordable for more kids? And then now I will say that some of the headlines that kind of ran away with what he said, like they made it sound like that he said, "Well, if you don't have the money, then go to my brother's camp." But his actual response that he was literally quoted as saying was that this is what we charge, because of what we have, things like that. But my brother has a more affordable camp. So that's how he kind of stated it. So I'm just curious, because that also brings to mind when I was growing up, like the price of Jordans and things like that, and kids even getting killed over Jordans, and Michael Jordan not taking that putting the business before the social aspect of it. So do y'all feel any type of way about pricing for questionably the most famous basketball player in the world, the most coveted by you could say kids right now, charging it and not carrying at his camp is unreachable to a majority of kids?
I would probably go on to say something like he said what he said. It's the same thing, and there's if Mercedes is in your budget, you buy a Benz, but if Hyundai's in your budget, you buy a Hyundai. But I will say that for the fact that people were calling him out on it, I don't necessarily think it's calling out. I think sometimes people just like to criticize just to criticize because they don't have anything else constructive to say. Obviously, I would probably be hard-pressed if you interviewed probably about 90% of those black athletes in the league. All of them would tell you, I got here not by going to some $2,500 camp.
Right.
I was playing ball on the court. I was getting beat up by my brother, my cousins. Junior high school, I was the smallest kid. I had to fight and play. So I think it's the gift and the curse. I don't think anything that he's going to say right now, based off him coming off a finals loss and him not playing well, I kind of think that was a little bit of a shot at him. That's just my opinion, but he's entitled to what he said, and the fact that he's having a camp, I think it's a good idea. I think people should just try to support him in general.
It's a business move. I mean, it's a business move. That's all it is. I mean, if he wants to charge, like Aaron said, if he wants to charge that, and people want to pay that, why shouldn't he? I mean, every athlete is one injury away, so you gotta strike when your market's hot. Even though he lost, I mean, he's still one of the most recognizable players in the NBA right now. Yeah. Why shouldn't he charge? I mean, I would.
Yeah, and in light of that, I do want to give Shaq a shout out. I don't know if y'all saw the article, but Shaq got recognized for how many shoes he sold and shoes provided to kids. Because you know people have been clowning Shaq for years now about his shoes not fancy, it's not made by Nike and whatnot, cheap.
It's in Walmart, right?
Yeah. You know, and you know, but Hakeem did that first, I believe. I believe Hakeem Olajuwon, at least one of the first ones, you know, to sell very affordable shoes. So you know, you know, shout out to them, you know, for that perspective as well. You know, I understand the business, but that perspective as well. But last thing I got, unless somebody else got something. Because I'm pretty sure we all hip hop heads here, at least, you know, it's the generation that we came up from, you know, like that was our artistic voice coming up. Recently they had the ladies' night a hip hop honor show, right? So let me preface this by saying I already have an issue with the current state of our popular hip hop music. I'll say that because I feel like there's always the underground scene where they're always, you know, lyrical, socially conscious, things like that. But you know, like I've made it known, you know, like I don't really personally get down, you know, like with more of the mainstream hip hop of today. You know, the Rich Homie Quans, Young Thugs, people like that, for instance. But there's a lot of them get played on the radio. I do, you know, Kendrick Lamar's, J. Cole's, things like that is more my speed. So, in saying that though, on this VH1 Hip Hop Honors, what the icing on the cake to me was Rich Homie Quan got up there with Lil' Kim, and
Messed up Biggie lyric.
He always, you know, he's already getting, you know, called out about not being a real MC and, you know, things like that, and not respecting the craft. But then you're gonna disrespect the craft even more by you being supposed to be a professional performer and you forgetting like one of the greatest lyricists ever, lyrics. So that's just something that I just wanted to pose because I know, like, you know, like we're the age where we've been through generations of hip hop. So I don't know if y'all got anything to chime in about that culture and about if you feel that was disrespectful at all.
Being from New York, I watched the show last night, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and she had mentioned the same thing, and I saw it live. And I said, did this brother just not? I mean, I know this song. And the funny thing is when you're watching the broadcast, they kept showing Queen Latifah, and Queen Latifah, a sister that has a huge amount of black self-respect. I mean, that sister's just, but she's singing the line word for word. And I'm sitting there watching the show, and let me get this right. Queen Latifah's there. Busta was already out there. You could have gotten somebody else other than him. I always said the results of something is always starts with who made the original decision. And I would just probably say, who made the original decision for Rich Homie Quan to sing Get Money with Lil' Kim? Like, they was in some room somewhere, and somebody was like, hey, who can we get to do that? Oh, I think Rich Homie Quan is available. Oh, hey, yeah, I'll be there. And I mean, literally, he said 5 words, and I guarantee you the brother got a check. I mean, just think about that. It's always somebody in charge, and that Pharrell was in there. I mean, Pharrell was there.
Charles, how old is Rich Homie Quan?
You know, I can look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure that brother's going to be probably mid-20s, mid-early 20s.
How long has Biggie been passed away?
Great point. What, about 10 years now?
It's going on 20.
I'm 20. I'm sorry. I'm talking about 10 years. 20,
it's like 20 years.
Yeah,
so there's a disconnect.
My bad.
There's a disconnect.
Disconnect.
That's, you know, like, I hope everybody understands what I'm saying is. Like, if you take a lot of these younger kids now who are activists and you ask them to quote Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, there's a disconnect. They can only do what's on mainstream TV. And it's no different for the people who are lyricists and original hip-hop heads and remember breakdancing, you know, all that ties in. So Biggie was, you know what I'm saying, that was one of our shining stars. The kids now, I mean, with auto-tune and tight pants and, yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm hating on that. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't like the new style music, man. Like, I don't think that they're artists. You know, I mean, it's not pure. It's not pure. So anytime I hear a young person who is pure with it, I really, really respect them because they took the time to learn the craft.
You know what's interesting about that too, though, is that every generation says that if you think about it. Like every generation says, "What the world are y'all kids listening to nowadays?" You know, you feel me on that?
We're gonna have this. I would love to do a hip hop. I actually would disagree with that because I think that when you got into the 90s, I think that the craft was so respected. I mean, if you remember, everybody remember the music, everything sounded, and probably up until like the late mid 2000s, everything sounded like a track from the 70s. There was so much sampling going on. I mean, you would listen to a Biggie song, and my mom would be like, "Oh yeah, that's Juicy Fruit." Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, "Oh yeah, that's Diana Ross," and that's what made people love the music.
Your mama first lady.
Yeah. But yeah, I know. But she was like, "Hell yeah." But we remember that music, so it kind of connected. I mean, I used to go. And I DJ'd a little bit, but I used to go and buy records and be like, "Oh, that's where that came from."
Was that a plug? Did Aaron just try to throw a plug?
No, I ain't no
Don't
DJ no more.
For y'all bar mitzvahs and birthday parties.
All right. But that was connections. I get that though. But now I do remember during the time though, like take Bad Boy Entertainment and I get it. Like now, like I wish we could go back to sounds like that. But I remember it being in the mid '90s, and maybe were you in New York during that time?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you maybe tell me different. But I remember when you looked at the people like that was the mainstream. Like the mainstream always get looked down upon the underground because like sort of in that time it was like Wu-Tang was real hip hop. Bad Boy was like candy shop hip hop. You feel me? I remember that during that time. So it wasn't like that in New York.
Not in New York. You had Biggie doing tracks with Meth. Mm-hmm. You know, you had a little intersectional beef, but I think the New York beef was more of a competitive balance. Yeah. And then the thing happened with Pac, but I still think that even till this day, competitive balance. Guys just being able to spit and just to go at it. And so I just think, even when you listen to Kendrick and J. Cole, I hear Nas and Jay in their music, and they're young cats. You know, I was listening to Logic. My son likes Logic. Yeah. I hear Nas all in. I hear Rakim in Logic. Oh, yeah. Sure. And Logic will talk about, hey, these are the guys that influenced me because in order for me to be a great rapper, I'm not looking at Little Romeo. I'm looking at Rakim, Kane, you know, Jay, Eminem, all these other guys that can naturally just spit. You know?
Yeah. So Razor, to your point, whose fault is that then? Because that makes me think even deeper. That makes me think about like preserving our history then. Because I, you know, like the Panda dude, Designer, I hear the same thing about him. They say he's from Brooklyn. Why does he sound like that? And the answer is because he grew up on Little John, things like that. Right. And so, you know, that just makes me think about history. If our young people is you know, are then just influenced by what's going on now, whose fault is that we lose our history so easily in such a short time?
Shoot.
Us.
The
It's
fault,
us, right?
Well, the fault goes to the artists who make it, who don't take the time to invest in the music. Like,
true that.
I was so upset when Dre sold beats to Apple. Like, right. You have the ability to create a dynasty. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's why when you ask me about should Jay-Z sell, absolutely not. Yeah. Because it's no different than when we lost all our land. Back years and years ago after slavery. It's just being taken another way.
That's it.
But I mean,
that's a business topic I wanted Aaron to come in on too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I actually, since we got it, shoot, you know, we can use this whenever. But but with that topic though, Aaron, I'm sorry, Reza, you finish your point first though. I'm sorry.
No. I was thinking when he was naming all them people, and I was going back like, man, you know, y'all had beef, all the rappers, you know, spitting this, that, and other. Around here, man, we had go-go music, man. Junkyard ain't never argued with Backyard. You know, Sugar Bear ain't never argued with Chuck. You know what I'm saying? We could have taught y'all something down this joint.
Hey, but let Rough It Off played and everybody beefing.
Now, hey, look.
Who you talking about?
That was a different thing, man. You had to show.
Elbows.
Yeah, you had elbows had to be strong. You know what I'm saying? And whoever did the hardest Rough It Off got the women at the end of the night. That's how it went.
There you go.
You know, it's like the bird on the tree. You'll put your chest out and flap your feathers.
That's right. hey, but Aaron, from the financial standpoint as well, because Razor spoke as a businessman, but from your standpoint, when you look at, like he said, you know, that ownership piece and understanding that's wealth and the ownership, like riches come from selling it. But, you know, but wealth is owning it and letting it work for you. So Dre selling beats, and then this talk now about Jay maybe selling Tidal to Apple. Financial thoughts?
I don't like speaking on another man's pockets. That's just a man rule. Razor and I talk about that all the time. What I will say is that when you see things like Google and these guys sell shares and all of a sudden you find out that they're building underground fiber optic. Remember we was talking about that in the shop? These guys are building underground fiber optic cable to go through the ocean, building an economy for things that are going to be constructive. And a lot of times when you sell something, you get the money, but what do you do with it? It's almost like some people, and I'm not accusing Hov or nothing like that of this, but they get money to buy more European items. It's just almost backwards. Instead of, okay, now we're creating this wealth, we're going to start construction companies, we're going to start financial firms. I mean, the funny thing is, a creator gave this in me in my head before I got here. Magic Johnson was the one that I looked at, because growing up in Jamaica, Queens, when I saw Magic throw a movie theater right in the hood, literally near, now the location was great, but we all used to be like, yo, there's a movie theater here, and there's an Old Navy, all these different businesses. But he took a chance because he says, I believe that these people will support this business. He had to go there. Whether it worked or not, he still took a chance. I don't see that a lot. I see a lot of us take our money, and instead of us improving our communities and creating opportunities so we no longer have these ghettos which were created by racism, we don't do that. We say, well, let's get further and further away from black people. Truth be told. Let's be honest. That's what we do. So instead of us reinvesting in ourselves, and because if you really care about those kids, create an opportunity for them. Don't give them a T-shirt. Don't give them a camp. Don't give them a basketball. Right. So that's why I always say, and now I don't want to go off on a tangent, but as black males, we failed. Because we have not created an infrastructure so these kids like Trayvon, you're not selling a CD at 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. You're not walking down the street to have to be in their neighborhood, and you got a Zimmerman walking up on you talking about, what are you doing here? We have not done a good job of creating an infrastructure so we don't have to beg and plead and say, you know what, we got our own and we don't care what you guys do, we'll be okay.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion on 101.3 Jams. We'll be right back.